But exactly where are we in this investigation? Let's get some help from a couple guests who know a whole lot. I'm joined by Utah retired police commander, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, Mike King, and Utah private investigator Jason Jensen. Thank you both for being here. Mike King, your first reaction. Let's talk about the manhunt, right? The search for this accused killer. We've got this image. What do you think's going on in trying to track down the person depicted in this image? If they have this and they have other video, what can they do?
Well, Vinny, I would suspect that if law enforcement takes the position that the commissioner just did in that clip that you played, that they have what they need to move forward at this point, that they may have even identified who this individual is, and at this point they're trying to look at locations where they might go, people they might associate with. They're trying to tighten up that net so that they can take this person into custody. The interesting thing will be what they recover from the forensics off of the weapon. And frankly, if they do know who it is, what they learn about the person's background. And so that gives them a much better idea of what they're up against. So this is a dragnet in progress. We're having the opportunity of kind of trusting that it's happening because thankfully law enforcement's keeping things a little close to the vest. But I think that we're going to see some action happening pretty quickly in this case.
Maybe the CS building is just east of the library. He's wearing jeans, black shirt, black mask, long rifle. Is on top of the building on the far north side, just east of the library, wearing jeans, black shirt, black vest.
This TMZ obtained video of the person of interest heading towards the campus. This is before Charlie Kirk was shot. In the video, the potential suspect appears to have somewhat of a limp. Now, we've heard a description of him jumping off the roof, but limping on his way there. I don't see a gun. My producer, Virginia, said, I wonder if that gun is down the pant leg, and that's how he's going to get to where he needs to get without anyone noticing he's got a gun. What are your thoughts, Jason?
Well, you know, Vinny, a couple of things come to mind. Number one, that's a possibility, and we have to think about that. But I also think there's been some information that's trickled out that there was a small screwdriver recovered at the site where the sniper was shooting from. And that gives me an indication that perhaps that was an assembled rifle on the rooftop, and that certainly could fit in that backpack and be put together. And maybe like a Brian Kohlberger knife, this could be the thing that leaves a piece of evidence that might help tie this thing together. But boy, all those things are possibilities. It's also possible that weapon could have been staged there long before he walked into that scene, that he used the cover of night to come in and get ready for this, because everything appears to be that there's pre-planning, there's organization, and that might fall apart a little bit toward the end, but this thing was executed pretty well.
Yeah, that's so let's talk about that. If in fact the weapon was pre-staged or in the backpack, not down his pant leg, and he's got a gimp and a limp like that, that seems like that should be someone, you know, anyone would be able to notice. And if you know the person, you're going to know, oh my goodness, that's so-and-so, because I know, I can tell by the walk.
Absolutely. And isn't it interesting, because once an image is put out, names start flooding into the police department about who that possibly could be. But in this particular case, we now have the FBI stepping up and putting a $100,000 reward out for information leading to this thing too. So I don't believe there's going to be a lot of friends that know this guy if he truly has a limp and looks like this guy, and this is the guy, that they're not going to be able to track him down pretty darn quickly.
Okay, let's take a look at some maps here so we get a better idea of the location of Charlie Kirk and the location of the shooter. As we take a look at this map, this is an overhead, and you can get the surrounding neighborhood because it seems that he fled on foot from what we're hearing from investigators. So you see the rooftop of where the shooter was, and then where Charlie was. When we pull back, you can see the university kind of backs into a neighborhood, and we had reports of officers going door to door inside of this neighborhood. And we pull back even further, looking for potential escape routes and highways to get out of Dodge quickly. We can kind of see the lay of the land there. Mike, I know you've also taken a look at this. What are your thoughts about how far the shooter is and what level of expertise or training would they need to be able to do this with one shot?
Well, clearly the individual is comfortable with a weapon. Now, the type of injury that appeared to be on Mr. Kirk is very indicative of a high-power weapon. So, I mean, we're moving into deer season in Utah, Vinny, so probably everybody in the north end of the state has been out sighting in their weapon. And frankly, originally there was some indication from the media and from the police that this was a 200-yard shot. When I started looking a little closer at that map, to me, it looks like about 421 feet to be pretty precise. And
here's
it's about
that map, Mike.
70-foot drop.
Here's the map that you put together.
There we go.
Explain what we're looking at.
Yeah, thanks, Vinny. And from our friends at Esri, thanks. I mean, this is the cool thing because on the far right side, under the Court TV logo, is the location of the shooter. What we have on the far left side at the bottom is the location of Charlie Kirk at the time that he was shot. 418 and a half feet is that distance there, guessing where he truly was on the corner. But the line of sight is so narrow that he has to be more toward the south end of that building where he's shooting from in order to have vision into the location where Charlie Kirk was staged. And keep in mind, that's only 70 feet difference in that drop from where he is in his elevated position to Charlie Kirk down in that pit. And so we can see why he has such a good view. And frankly, it also gives us an indication that he's in an area where if he's trying to flee, he most likely would have to flee toward the east. And that little neighborhood, I believe that law enforcement's talking about, because the only neighborhood that's attached to that place, as we look here, that white dot kind of signifies where Charlie was standing. But as he would have left that rooftop, he would have headed straight east across the rooftop down, and then he would have dumped, and police said in the woods. Well, there aren't any woods there, but there are a batch of trees on the north side of the campus in that northeast corner, and we're starting to move toward that as the panning here is happening. The red point shows where the suspect potentially was. And then to the far east is a little thing called Aviation Park. But that neighborhood is just to the north of all of that. So it would have been really easy to get there. And it makes me think that that weapon was probably recovered in that thick stack of trees to the northeast of where that shooter started this rampage.
Now, let me ask you this, Mike. Social media is such a big driver of theories, and people are jumping in. But this is one of those cases where you're trying to identify someone. And there's people being identified on the internet right now as we speak. Obviously, we're not going to, provide those names, but people are identifying people. Here's my question. Does law enforcement pay attention to any of that during the course of the investigation? Because what the internet does is it multiplies, right? You're not talking about one set of eyeballs. You're talking about millions of people rummaging through every record they can find online. And then they try to match up. Oh, this person is similar to this person. This person posted a song about Charlie Kirk dead at 31 back in August. They now scrubbed it. This is what's happening online right now. Does law enforcement pay attention to that?
Boy, they better be paying attention, Vinny. And I'll tell you, this is something that you and I have talked about on several occasions, and that's the fact that law enforcement has to figure out how to embrace the true crime community, because there are a batch of people out there with a whole lot of skill sets, and they're gathering a whole lot of information. And bottom line is, when the Boston Marathon happened, one of the failures was when they asked for tips and leads, they had so much information coming in, it was hard to manage. Delphi, Indiana, perfect example. They gave the public an assignment, and that's what law enforcement has to do in this particular case. And I think they've done it. We want information leading up to this. And boy, it should be a caution to everybody that's out on social media that there are people scrolling through their phone at 2 o'clock in the morning that just might be inspired by your words of hate or discontent, and they may turn into a terrorist. Mike King, Jason Jensen, so glad to have you both here tonight. Thank you so much.